So we have Andy Weiner from RockStep on. Thanks for coming on.
Love to be here.
Appreciate it.
Andy, this is already the most fun I've had just in the first 5 minutes of getting to know you.
We cover everything. I don't think we've covered the retail space maybe as much as we could have recently. So it's great to have you on to dig a little bit more into it. And why don't you give us like a quick intro on yourself and RockStep?
So RockStep Capital is a shopping center investment company. We've been in business 28 years, based in Houston, built or acquired about 10 million square feet of shopping centers, assets in 11 states, kind of Minnesota to Texas, Arizona to Virginia, kind of that area. Grocery, open air power centers, and enclosed malls. So we play in the enclosed mall sector, which is kind of the crazy sector in commercial real estate. We own 14 malls, secondary, tertiary markets, vertically integrated.
So contrarian, right?
Yes, yeah.
The word on the street and everything we read is that everyone talks about this sort of mall apocalypse. Not only that, tertiary markets.
I love the mall apocalypse story. I've been interviewed multiple times in the Wall Street, and I say, keep the news bad, okay? Because it keeps prices low. So malls are the most interesting investment, I believe, in commercial real estate, certainly in the shopping center sector. There is lots and lots of insolvent debt, $50 billion, a big, big number that's all going to get repriced over the next 3-4 years at land value at mid-teens cap rates. So
now when you say mid-teens, you mean actual in place?
In place, generally between 12 and 18% on existing income. And it's great real estate, often out-of-date architecture.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got to figure out what's the right strategy. But there are 3 basic strategies for malls. One is it works great in its current format. Manhattan, Kansas, bought it at a 17 cap from the largest institution in the country, and $2 million of NOI. We've increased NOI to $2.6 million just by doing what we do. 50% leverage at 7.5%. We pay an 8 pref. There's 20% extra cash returned each year without a refi.
Wow.
Boring cash flow play.
That's some pretty good cash flow to get. It's very hard to find anywhere.
Just cash flow. This
well,
is
Andy,
just
it's boring cash flow, but it's ballsy, right? Like, I know we're going to jump around right now, but what possessed you? Not only did you go into a very operationally intensive from a leasing perspective and all that. What possessed you to go there? And then on top of that, these secondary and tertiary markets where who knows how deep the retail pool is, who knows how big the local MSA is. How did you get into that? You just talked about a mall in Manhattan, Kansas.
Yes.
K-State, baby.
Yeah.
Home of
that is K-State.
Yeah.
Okay. So we like hometowns. Hometowns are not New York, not Chicago, not Atlanta, not LA, not Houston, not Dallas. These are communities where the leadership of the community is identifiable and effective. And so generally that means that you're in populations under 1 million, sometimes well under 1 million. Manhattan, Kansas market is probably 100, 150,000 when you look at it. So our model is to buy great assets in markets that have something essential to them that drives demography. K-State University, Riley Military Base, there's a new research center. You've got to have something that drives the population. It could be tourism, and buy the property cheap with lots of cash flow, with local business leaders being part of the equity. So in other words, we want to reduce risk by getting local business leaders to help us reduce risk by being our guide. Entitlements, incentives, property taxes, relations with the city, county officials. Oftentimes, malls become something hybrid, retail plus. And that plus is everything everybody knows about, but our investors are effectively deputized leasing agents for alternative uses. They're on the board of the community college, the hospital district, economic development, and they guide us for alternative uses.
So Andy, I like the idea. Sorry to cut you off. I just before we forget, I want to dive into a few things you kind of talked about. For starters, I love the idea of partnering with local partners. I totally dig that. That makes so much sense, particularly in these sort of under the radar, less known markets. But how do you pick these tertiary markets to begin with? What sort of demographics are you looking for? And a lot of these markets.
He said they're looking for something like a college or
whatever
the driver is.
You don't have a lot of population growth in a lot of these markets. So what are you looking at?
Well, you have to have something that at least keeps population stable. Okay, and you're also we're a red state company.
Yeah,
I mean we are red state
a time or two.
Yes, we are red state companies or red counties in purple or blue states.
Right.
We'll go into California. We'll go into some other markets.
Right. Orange County.
Yeah. We'll go into Redding, Redding, California, or in Imperial Valley, California. So we're conservative mentality.
Yeah.
And we're focused on hometowns.
You're not going into Portland.
We are not going into Portland. We are not.
Although that would be very contrarian.
I heard some 18 cap malls. All right. So I want to talk about that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you more about this mall in Manhattan, Kansas, right? So this is a recent deal?
This is a recent deal. This is on an unsubordinated ground lease with the city complex. Dillard's is a key tenant. Dillard's is 11 or 12 years done with their lease, and then the owner will get it. So there's value to create either by getting more income from Dillard's or replacing them.
Sorry, you said the owner will get it, meaning the ground lessors.
We own properties for 5 years, so the next owner will have the right to create value there.
Yeah, you're selling the upside just like anything
else. You're selling the
upside.
One of the things we do is not only do we have local investors, but we have local lenders. So our community bank lender there, K-State Bank, where our investors are on the board of, it's all tied to community. And so local investors, local lenders, coordination with the city. So we needed to get signage in that market. Signage is not allowed, just one of those markets. So we worked with, we put a signage package together to keep some of the national tenants in the property. And we sent it to the city manager. We copied our investors, and we were able to get it. That's how it's done. Okay. And in another market in the Dakotas, we have investors where one of them is a sheriff, and property taxes are very political. And Andy, let me help you get property taxes adjusted, and that's how it's done. And we get a lot of incentives. New Orleans, we bought the Riverwalk from the Howard Hughes Corporation. We put together 7 of the best business leaders that city's seen on a private deal, and we were able to get from the city an annuity of $1.5 million to $2 million a year, unbudgeted, without me getting involved. Our investors went to go see the mayor, went to go see city council, put this together. I could not have done it.
Got an investor portal? Great. But if you're still tracking payments outside the system, manually reconciling your waterfalls, or keeping your fingers crossed that your platform provider delivers your distributions on time, you're not getting what you need. InvestNext is purpose-built to handle today's capital raises, digital subscriptions, intuitive deal rooms, complex distributions, and direct ACH payments. While you focus on investors, InvestNext handles the back end with less friction and more firepower. Don't let outdated tools hold back your next raise. Upgrade your stack at investnext.com/nocap. So when you say an annuity, is that in the form of tax relief, or is that just a grant, or what does that look like?
We've gotten grants. So in Minnesota, we've gotten $2.5 million of grants. We're working on a project in Texas where we're going to get a $10 million grant. Okay. And that's, again, because of investors. But many states have the ability to put on a sales tax. So retail has the advantage compared to any other asset class that you can actually put a sales tax on your property. So you basically are taxing the customers who shop there. And you use that sales tax to reimburse you for upgrades that normally, but for the gap, would not have happened. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So
And you can hyper focus it like that much. You can just put it on a mall.
Yes. So we did this at
Does
the
that piss
Riverwalk.
customers off?
Well,
They're probably not even paying attention to it.
it's primarily tourists. So if they spend an extra 2 cents at the Gap
Right.
or at Polo, they don't know. And we get the funds to upgrade, multi-million dollars to upgrade a piece of this, but for that.
And you're working that arrangement with the whatever
with the municipality, yes.
Yeah.
So
do the tenants ever push back?
no.
Interesting.
I didn't know about
I would
this.
think if I'm like a big national chain, like a Polo, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in the store and now I have a tax.
Yeah.
Wait, why do I have to sell my product
Andy's
here
trying to do
at a
what?
higher price?
Forget.
Yeah.
So in Kansas, we put on a 2-cent sales tax in Hutchinson, Kansas.
Right.
We're demauling 6 of our malls. So the different strat. We're not demauling Manhattan, Kansas.
Can you explain demauling to us?
So demauling is getting rid of the interior corridor. And there's different ways to do that. So 3 of our demalls are led by TJ Maxx, Ross, and just facing everybody out. Another one is led by Target with a massive demolition of the entire shopping center except for Dillard's and Penny's.
And so the demolition I understand, but when you say you're taking out the interior courtyard, are you doing anything else to it, repurposing it, or you're just shutting it down and facing everyone outwards?
Shutting it down, facing it outwards, making it storage for a storage tenant.
Understood.
Yeah. In some cases, you'll demo the back. So in
That's very interesting.
So
Yeah.
what's interesting is that you take an asset valued at a 15 cap, you put in investment grade TJ Maxx Ross, face it out, mini storage for the remnants, let's say, and it becomes a 9 cap deal.
Yeah.
Okay. So the question is, what's the cost of going from a 15 cap to a 9 cap, and is it accretive or not?
Yeah.
Okay. And so oftentimes you'll want to use incentives to help make it accretive. And we've done this in Nebraska. We've done it in Kansas, certainly Louisiana. We're doing this in Texas, where you create taxing districts.
So when you're talking about the cap, are you talking? Because one thing when people talk about cap rates, it's all fine and dandy, but they're not necessarily talking about cap rates when you're including whatever capex is needed in a project. So do you look at the yield on cost in total, or?
So look, when you make any decision in a mall or even a shopping center, is all numerator divided by denominator. Numerator is the additional revenue you receive from that investment, that new tenant, whatever you're doing. Denominator is the full cost. Construction, all soft, not including the cost of the shopping center, the cost of the land. So any investment you make, not including. Okay,
That's interesting. Okay.
No, you don't. So
you're looking at just the ROI that your capex is driving.
Yeah. So we're working on a Ross deal in Aberdeen, South Dakota right now. We're negotiating with them. The marginal revenue of the Ross is about 14% divided by total cost. And so that cost is, call it $2 million. If you wanted to borrow your debt service, $180,000, and your coverage on that will be at about 1.65 or 1.7, and you're creating value because that piece is at a 9 cap. A Ross deal in Aberdeen is a 9 cap. So you're getting a 14% return. You're adding $750,000 of value to the shopping center. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're looking at. You're isolating the additional revenue per deal, right? Because I'm thinking about your mall or your center in boxes, let's say.
Yes.
Right? And you have 4 boxes, 3 of them are full. You have 1 vacant one. You plan on getting a Ross or similar tenant.
Yeah, and the reason why we're doing this is because when you're buying something at 15 cap, your vacancy is for free.
Right.
You have vacancy at a 15 cap. So you've got upside at 15
Instant
cap.
upside.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So going back to the original question, what's the strategy? There's 3. There's the Manhattan, Kansas. Just fine the way it is. Just take boring cash. Okay. And a lot of malls in secondary, tertiary markets are just stable NOI kind of cash plays, and just return, pay your 8 pref current every quarter and return 10%, of the original equity without a refi.
But you are always looking at an exit, no matter what.
We plan 5 years.
Okay.
Are you doing this in a fund?
We have a new fund,
Okay.
Hometown America, Fund 1.
It's a good name. I like that.
So this is your so you're just launching your first fund.
Yeah, we're switching our business from syndication to fund for the obvious reasons. The best deals require committed capital.
Yeah,
Of course.
Okay.
You feel like you've lost out on deals just by not already
against
having
the guys that are actively buying in the market.
Makes sense.
That
It
are here in
changes
New York.
everything.
Yes.
I
They've got ready cash. We need ready cash. Our fund is targeting.
Who are the buyers? When you're looking at your exit down the line, are they other groups like yourself who see that they can provide more value?
There's 3 buyers. Okay. And it depends on the asset, depends on the market. But in general, there's 3 buyers. There are other buyers in the space. And if you compare a 15 cap yield to other either types of shopping centers or multifamily, there are buyers who like that. If you have steady NOI, forget about growing, but you have steady NOI and you sell it at a 15 cap, there are trade guys who will come out of a multifamily at a 6 and want.
Because now you've piqued their interest.
Well, and you've proven that NOI is steady. The reason why you can buy a mall at a 15 cap is that there's a belief that NOI isn't steady and it's wildly hard to get debt.
Yeah.
Okay. So debt funds we've never used a debt fund. Debt fund's expensive.
Yeah.
So our model is secondary market, local investors, community bank lenders who want to invest in the community, and they'll invest in a weird asset class that has 2.7 times debt service coverage with investors in the deal who are on their board. And so the advantage of community bank debt, like we're doing a deal right now in Lake Charles, Louisiana, hometown market, community bank, 7% fixed for 5 years, but no prepayment penalty. Not a dime. It is a phone call.
And they're still getting a 2-point-something DSCR coverage. I mean, they feel pretty.
Well, we're buying a grocery anchor deal in Lake Charles. That will be a 1.7.
Wait, so hold on. We've done so much weaving. We did the typical Trump weave. So let's do a couple
let's go
things.
back to we're back on strategies.
Exactly. So we had the 3 strategies. So the first strategy is
fine as it is.
You found
It's
cheap
yield-
basis.
it's a
good
yield play,
You don't
NOI
have
is
to change
steady.
anything. Got it. So that's the first one.
That's number 1. Number 2 is arbitrage. Arbitrage is basically the periphery. The periphery is worth a lot. The center of a mall is worth less. Rapid City, South Dakota bought it at a 22 or 23 cap for $12 million. Sold off the front restaurant pad, sold off the adjacent Hobby Lobby Center for $16 million. All of that
Hobby
combined.
Lobby.
So you sold off pad sites. You got a bunch of cash flow up front.
So you sold
else?
off we paid off all of our equity, and we're sitting with
Just with the pad sites, and now you own your
we paid
center.
off more than our equity with that, and then we're left with them all throwing off $2.5 million of cash.
That's incredible.
Of which 2 majors are interested in coming in.
You're really creative. The way you're looking at each project, you're really
every one is different.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard. Now that's a second one. The third one is shrink and do something else. So we're demoling 6, shrinking 1, demolishing Target is coming in. Another one, shrink, probably is going to be Costco. 3 more, shrink, Ross, TJ's, Five Below, and a few others, Aldi. Another one is a hockey arena. In Janesville, Wisconsin, the city is building a $50 million hockey arena where the Sears is. So we'll end up there doing multifamily and hospitality.
Andy, can I ask you on this strategy where you're taking away your density?
Yes.
What's the benefit that you're really getting out of it? Because when I think about it in my simple commercial mind, if I have a building in New York and I go and I start demolishing floors, my price per foot's getting a lot higher and I'm not getting any additional revenue. Why is the strategy of removing space accretive for your plan? In the one example you gave us originally, you turned the center courtyard or the back of the big stores into storage. I get that.
Yes.
But when you say you just demolish, or what ends up happening there? Is it that you get a premium for, do they become pads?
Look, it's asset by asset. I'll use an example of a boring city called Hutchinson, Kansas.
We love Hutchinson.
The people in Hutchinson just got really mad at you. They have a great
How do you
time.
know
Come
that?
on.
I like
We're
Hutchinson.
just joking.
Yeah, that would scare the crap out of me. Okay. Scare the crap. The people are great there. So we've got a lot of investors in Hutch. So there, it is a massive mall that we bought and had $150,000 of NOI. Okay. We turned the Dillard's into TJ Maxx. We brought in the Power Center. We brought in Dunham's into the Sears. We're now demalling. Okay. So when we demall, we're going to face everybody out, mothball the interior, and we're at about $2.7 million of NOI right now. Okay. Is it pretty? No, but the city will have Ross, TJ Maxx, it will have Ulta, it will have all these national tenants, a city of 25,000 people. Okay. So that's an example of a demall. So when you sell it, you're not selling that rent stream at a 15 cap. You got TJ Maxx on a 10-year. Mm-hmm. By the way, with low rents, the best advantage of secondary, tertiary markets is you don't have high rents. We don't want high rents. We want low rents. They're never going to leave.
Yeah.
Okay. In the big metros, when you've got TJs paying 20 or 25, at the end of their term, will they go across the street if there's a vacancy? How do you underwrite that?
But there's also not a lot of options in these tertiary markets for them to go to, right?
That's why if you own real estate at $10 a foot, 10% of replacement costs, you're sitting pretty, at free.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we haven't gotten to why retail's kind of cool. Retail's cool because it's a yield play. It's the only sector that's got really great yield right now.
Well, what's the real downside? Why are
downside of what?
Of doing what you're doing, and if you can go in and get some real cash flow.
Leasing.
Well,
leasing is probably the biggest downside.
The downside is that the insides, the interior of the malls are vulnerable. So you have to underwrite the interior extremely carefully. It's called base case underwriting, as if nothing good's going to happen.
Right. And that's everyone's approaching it the same way for the most part, you think?
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
Andy's not giving away secrets here.
No, it's hard.
Yeah.
Look, so if Victoria's Secret's paying $500,000 in rent and they threaten to leave in 2 years, everybody blinks. In a tertiary market.
Yeah.
So you have to underwrite that down to $200,000.
Well, and you have co-tenancies,
Yes.
I know, which is probably a big issue.
Co-tenancy is a risk. You want to buy a mall asset after co-tenancy has already worked its way out of the asset.
Can you explain what co-tenancy is for everybody?
So co-tenancy is a rule that says we as smaller tenants in a shopping center, it could be a mall, it could be a open air center, we have a contractual right to reduce our rent if the big players, which is why we're here, close and are not replaced within a certain period of time by a comparable tenant.
And the rationale is those big players bring more foot traffic.
They're magnets.
Correct. And they're
Yeah.
magnets.
Yes.
They're magnets.
Now, that's abused a little bit because the Sears never brought anybody.
Right.
And the Pennies,
Not for a while.
don't tell anybody this, but the Pennies didn't bring anybody.
Yeah.
And they're doing more volume in 3,500 feet than Pennies is doing in 110,000. Okay. But that's a gotcha, and they will use that gotcha.
Yeah.
And those are so antiquated, those co-tenancy clauses with a Sears or Pennies, like you said.
Oh my God.
It's
But
like irrelevant now.
Yeah.
it's not, except that when you do new deals, and we're 3 times busier than we've ever been, and because retail is back. I mean, that's what happened, and the supply-demand dynamics are in retail's favor. Everybody wants to expand. Those that have survived COVID and Amazon have their own e-commerce strategy that's very effective, and they're expanding into an inventory that's not.
Yeah.
They've told Wall Street, we're going to do 150 stores for TJ's. Ross wants 110. Boom, 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 boom. But there's very, very little new inventory.
Your LPs expect more now. Instant access, integrated funding, seamless distributions, and polished experience every time they log in. If your portal hasn't kept up, you're already behind. InvestNext helps you deliver an investor experience that keeps you one step ahead of your investors' expectations and reinforces your brand at every step. Because staying ahead means raising the bar. Upgrade your investment management platform and elevate your investors' experience at investnext.com/nocap. Andy, I want to go into some of the metrics that you're looking for that really show you that shopping center or strip center, whatever you want, whichever asset you look at is performing, right? Especially as you go into these more tertiary markets where you're not looking necessarily for population growth or something like that. And cash flow is only as good as the tenants who are paying and while they're paying. So
that's a good one, by the way.
Right. So it can be $2 million until it isn't.
Correct.
So what's giving you, strong indications that this is a good play? Everything else aside, you found a city that works with you.
Yes.
It's a red state. They're pro-business. I get all that. What about the center? What are you looking at with the tenants?
The center is a collection of tenants. You're right. Okay. So you look at first of all, you assume that the location works. If it doesn't, problem. But assuming the location works, the market works. So
hang on that for a second. What's a couple of things you like? Obviously good visibility on a road, something like that.
If it's a mall in a market that has essential drivers, university, tourism, Fortune 1000 companies, hospital system, military, whatever, something driving traffic, it's usually in a pretty good location.
Yeah.
I very rarely see a mall that's poorly located. Now, you can have a mall with poor architecture. Mm-hmm. And what you don't want is you don't want deep. You want wide.
Right.
Some malls are very, very difficult to demall or to think it through. So we're looking at one right now in the Midwest that is this way and deep. Dillard's is in the back, and Sears is on the right. Major grocer wants to go where the Sears is. Sears is something else. Penny's on the left, which will never go anywhere.
So all the big boxes are far from each other, and you have a deep corridor.
So how do you demall
tenants.
it?
Yeah.
Okay, how do you demall it without government help? Mm-hmm. Okay, that state doesn't have the rules yet for government help. The tax rules, we might be one of the pioneers in the state. A lot of these states are putting these rules in that will help close this gap. So we're struggling there. We need two engines in that market. The grocery store is one, but you need a second. So the second will either be military office, like a General Dynamics major office user, or it will be a gift from a wealthy donor who wants to see the asset revitalized and help close the gap.
You've had that happen?
That no, but we're negotiating.
But he's helpful.
Yeah.
No. So I've aligned with the key business leaders in that market. They want to see this asset redevelop. It's an eyesore. Okay. So that's part of what I call the RockStep Coalition. Local investors, city, local lenders. So we've got the city behind us. We've got local investor group behind us. And they're calling their senators, they're calling their House of Reps to try to get a lease. And we're putting together foundations and organizations that have contributed to the hospital that maybe they'll contribute to a hard asset.
Sure.
And instead of getting, when they contribute, $50 million to the hospital, they get nothing. They get goodwill. But if they contributed 10 or 15 million to this asset, we would make them subordinate. Mm-hmm. They might get a 6 or 8% return when new equity needs to get 18
Again,
to 20.
creative. I like that.
Okay, so in another market, we're getting the city to contribute $10 million to close a gap, and the city is going to be subordinate to new equity. Okay, so new equity will get a 20 IRR minimum. The city will get nothing until all investors get 20 IRR, and then anything above a 20, the city will get half. New investors will get above that.
So you give the city a catch up.
The catch up, and they get the advantage of solving an eyesore. The city business leadership will be part of the new equity. It will be a major hospital office coming in to the asset. So there will be 50 to 100,000 square feet of medical office, along with sporting goods, grocer, off price, and we're going to demall it.
And you think that there is a play for these medical offices and something like a mall?
You have to have something. You have to have an engine. somebody's got to close the gap. It's either got to be something like that, or a hockey arena, or the numbers got to work.
And when you're underwriting these projects and you're digging into them, do they rarely work without incentive? Do they mostly work without incentive?
I would say most of the new you really need incentives.
You need incentives.
You need incentives.
Got it.
Yeah. Sometimes they work without, but we have really mastered local incentives, and our investors help us. Our staff helps us because our staff is embedded in these communities. We have about 100 employees, live all over the country. So it is totally a hometown strategy. And y'all are big city guys. I'm a big city guy. There is something unique about hometowns. There really is a quality of life and a quality of community in what are called hometowns, dramatically different than the coast and the big cities. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we operate. That's where we like to operate.
I was going to ask what role that the local municipalities and states have in these projects, and you pretty much already answered it. It's a huge role.
Yes,
it's huge. There's no doubt about it.
To take a complex asset and not mess up, okay, you have to have three things. You do need business leaders who, as a guide, okay, have a stake. You do need the city, whether it's mayor, city council, city manager, city staff, okay? And then you need community bank. You have to have all three, and they're all tied together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what happens is when problems come up, and there will always be problems, you can get creative to solve them, okay? We're good at leasing. We're good at property budgeting and all that underwriting. But these assets are affected by community issues. Property taxes, rumors, crime, whatever it is, okay? So our mission is to make hometown America better. That really is our mission, and we're inspired by that.
Let's talk about what got these tertiary markets and these tertiary malls to the place that they got to begin with. There's obviously the Amazon effect, but what else, right? I mean, I know Walmart is a huge reason. Do you have feelings towards that?
You're talking about where these malls are now economically, Jack?
Yeah, just how they got here, right? What happened that created this, quote unquote, mall apocalypse to begin with? And I don't want to bore everyone too much because I think a lot of people
let me stay high level. Walmart, definitely. And Walmart, when you say Walmart, Target, Home Depot, but use Walmart just like we use Amazon, Walmart. Mm-hmm. In our family business, we had 159 stores. We didn't survive primarily, not exclusively, because of Walmart. Just unbelievable buying power, okay? Second, the department stores were no longer relevant. Why? I believe there's multiple reasons, but one of the big ones is the creation of off-price. And we're talking about TJ Maxx, Ross, Nordstrom, Burlington, a few others. And what the advantage of off-price has is that it creates excitement for women, primarily, and it's done in an environment where there's a cadence of markdowns that's very, very structured. So every 60 days, you mark it down by 20%, 30%, and you keep on going. And as a result, you have a store that turns its merchandise 6 times a year. Mm-hmm. Dillard's, Macy's will turn twice a year. Number 2, the cost of capital to open and maintain a TJ Maxx is de minimis. I mean, you got lights, you got to have sprinkler system, you got to have decent flooring.
But it's just shelves.
It's shelves.
And they don't need to be pretty because we've all walked into a TJ Maxx.
We all know what we're getting.
Every 5 years, a refresh is $100,000. Right. Mm-hmm. So you look at a Dillard's and you look at a Macy's, and I'm not talking about here in New York. I'm talking about in the rest of in hometowns. Yeah. And you realize that to replace flooring is $2 million. Lighting is $1 million. New fixtures is $3 million. You add up, this to keep this thing fresh, you need $7 million or $10 million. The store does $12 million. The bottom line is $1 million. Mm-hmm. They'll allocate $100,000 for capital refresh. They will never, ever, ever be able to refresh. Right. Okay. Unless they got a landlord by the yin yang and says, okay, I need a consent. And I'm going to give a consent only if you give me a check for $10 million. Mm-hmm. harder to do in secondary, tertiary markets.
Sure.
The third play is that there have been several buyers who have bought well over 100 malls in the last 5 to 7 years, and their strategy is what is called an asset depletion strategy. Cut expenses to the extreme. Don't pay, in some cases, don't pay taxes. Don't pay utilities.
Yeah. The slumlords of retail is what you're describing.
Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
It's a very effective financial strategy. It is. It is not illegal.
Right. It's not illegal?
It's not illegal.
Well, it's not illegal to buy a property.
But you have to give
kind of
them,
bleed it a
I'm
bit.
sure with all your tenants, it's a contract. You have to provide a minimum service. I can't imagine.
But it's not
shutting
against
it
the
down.
law.
Right.
That's what I mean by illegal.
It might not be the way we would like.
It's
people
not
to
what
run
tenants
property.
like, and it's not what communities like.
Yeah.
And it creates a lot of grief for both. And so what we do is that we go into communities where this has happened, and we're the white knight.
Yeah.
We put the RockStep coalition together. You, city manager, you, city leadership, you have an issue here. Let's see if we can bring in city incentives. Let's find who are the business leaders who do club deals. Let's get the city leadership involved. Who are the 2 or 3 community banks? Let's figure out what the gap is. Let's do it the RockStep way, which is very straightforward, very open, very transparent. Let's try to solve this problem together.
So when you're competing against these other groups,
I'm talking about this is after the other groups own it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going in and buying assets that have already gone through this.
Correct. In addition, we're competing on new assets with these type of groups.
Okay, right. And then that's a value add for you, right? Because you're going to the city leaders and telling
it
them.
is.
It's a hometown.
But they can also underwrite cheaper if their intent is to not pay utilities
But
or
every
regulate on taxes.
local municipality is going to see the value that you're bringing in refurbishing their community.
Yes, I mean, that's the theory. Now, basically, we have 2 shots at the asset.
Yeah.
We have the first shot, and sometimes we'll lose because we underwrite for base case, and we require that we do due diligence. Kind of strange. And some of the asset depletion guys don't.
Right. They don't care about due diligence. They're going to buy it super cheap. They're going to operate it super cheap. They're going to milk it for the cash.
Yes.
And then eventually they'll walk away.
It is
Maybe cap rates compress and they can sell it for a profit still.
Well, no, they'll sell off periphery. I mean, this is.
By the way, people who buy yield, they're not looking at cap rate compression.
And by the way, they provide a service.
Yeah.
They clean up stuff,
Makes
and they're
sense.
effectively intermediaries. The intermediaries. They take it. They let a property deteriorate, harvesting cash until it's ready to become something else.
Right.
Now the issue is that there's a way to take a property and not let it deteriorate, and do a structured hybrid something else in a way that is profitable and that is more honorable to your tenants and to your communities, because particularly a mall affects quality of life. I mean,
Alex still goes on dates in malls.
I love dates.
He takes
at the
his
mall.
wife to the mall, just walk around.
Listen, jokes aside, I know I'm going way too into the weeds on this question, but I want to go back to the incentives thing.
Sure.
Right. Having dealt with this before, not on shopping malls necessarily,
Sure.
I know how difficult it is to get incentives from city. And from the city,
You're living in a different world.
I completely agree with you on that. But if you're going into a new territory, I'm sure it's still somewhat of a challenge to get an incentive from the city. My question to you is, how in your process are you convincing, a new city that you guys are the best probability of success for this asset? Because I know from a city manager's perspective, they're not super quick to give away funds because it's a risk. What happens if you can't perform? And what happens to the asset then?
So I was at city council last week in one of these communities where the community is going to give us between $8 and $10 million in cash and give us
which is a lot of cash for any city.
It's a lot of cash, and they're going to give us a TIF and a sales tax agreement. So both. And I said, look, you going into this, there's a chance you're going to lose all your money. There is. And basically the property has two closings. There's the closing 1 to get control of the asset. There's a closing 2 a year later where you have figured out the demall strategy. These 3 tenants need to go here because they have leasehold rights. We're bringing new tenants in here. We're doing medical office here. All of that stuff is very labor. Our whole team is working on every piece of this. Do you fix the roof and the sprinkler system when you're demolishing it a year from now? And so you have all of these issues, which are as complex of issues as I see in real estate, that you've got to solve to get to your second closing.
You're going through all that during your due diligence as well, just your plan with what looks like a puzzle?
Yes. So you'll go through your first closing, which will take 4 to 6 months, and you're going to assess what is your ability to get it done. Okay. And you better be at that 90x% to get to the first closing. First closing is hold.
Yeah.
Okay. You always got to think about, if I get through first closing and I'm not successful with second, what's my exit?
Yep.
And so we talked about with the city, okay, Mayor, worst case, we get stuck after first closing. Okay. Let's talk about who has control rights. I'm general partner, they're equity contributor.
Yeah. So you're protecting your downside risk a bit.
But you have to ask what can go wrong.
Yeah. How long is typical due diligence for these projects? I feel like it's got to be quite a while.
Well, there's two kinds of diligence.
That's right. So again, and there's 2 ways to buy properties.
Yeah.
There's buying properties with a seller that gives you the time to work it out. Mm-hmm. And then there's the normal process that's 4 to 8 weeks, which is when processes are, for special servicers. That's a 4 to 8 week process. That is tough. And so that's where you get to base case underwriting and say, hey, we've got to hit a 17, 18 IRR as if nothing good's going to happen. We can't get pennies out. We can't get property taxes down. We can't reduce retail and get 300 units of multifamily.
That's your buy and hold. You bought it and you got stuck with what it is.
That's the base case. Yeah. But you also know that if you have local investors, you have this coalition together, you'll probably get entitlements. The city, we never have a trouble with entitlements. We're living in hometowns. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, there's a difference between hometowns. Hometowns want things to get better, and the leadership who's advising us on whether we get that will work with the mayor and city council. Getting rezoning is never an issue.
The news is important, but if you're a busy real estate professional like me, you don't have time to skim through dozens of dry and ad-filled media outlets each day. That's why I read the CRE Daily. It's a free email newsletter that cuts through the clutter and delivers concise, witty commentary on the latest trends and transactions in commercial real estate. If you're a commercial real estate professional, you owe it to yourself to try it out and stay on top of what's happening in the industry. It's only 5 minutes a day. Visit credaily.com to sign up for free.
So it sounds like you partnering with people in the city is really what helps you get around the challenge of explaining why you're the right group to do it. You've already found the like-minded people who understand your plan,
or you won't do the deal. Or you won't do the deal. In other words, unless all the gods align.
Right.
In other words, it's hard. It's got a number. You got to hit a high teens 20 IRR with a high degree of probability. Mm-hmm. Can it work without city incentives? Sometimes. Most of the time not. But you've got to be able to work a 20 IRR type of deal with a very high probability of happening. And everybody wants it to happen. That's the cool part. And part of what inspires our team is that we actually make hometown America better. Like it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
We're here to make a living. We're here to pay salaries and, bonus, all that. But you actually make a difference. These towns need somebody.
Andy, I'm gonna pivot here just for a second.
You can do whatever you want. This is yours.
So what is the craziest thing that you've seen, the roughest asset you've seen while doing this? I imagine you've seen some pretty crazy things. We've seen photos of these war-torn malls.
There is one.
Okay. And if not, that's great too.
I don't want to tell you where it is because it's too sensitive. But the owner did not pay the electric bill and the water bill, and during the holiday season, and Dillard's had to bring in 7 months of outside electric. The water was cut off for 6 days in a row, and the property manager had to borrow funds from her tenants to go to the city to pay the water bill. The city shut down during the holidays the shopping center because the sprinkler system was out of code, and all of the tenants couldn't have.
Oh, no.
I mean, and it gets worse. Okay. And in this situation, the city has never experienced something as emotionally distraught as this. Okay. And we're going to save that asset.
Wow. And you're going through that now, today. You're working on that asset. That's great.
Okay. And it is hard, and everybody is focused. And our whole team went to the city, looked at the asset, met with city council, met with the head of economic development, met with the business leaders who tried to buy the property themselves, but then they realized, it's pretty complex.
Yeah.
No, I mean, what does a consent mean? I mean, our specialty is two things. One, this whole local piece. And two, it's consents. You have to be a master of consents. Penny's controls your future. Dillard's controls your future. Dick's Sporting Goods control your future. And so negotiating with these to redevelop, to do X, Y, Z is probably one of the hardest things in retail.
Well,
Andy, do you see success with people who are converting malls into like last mile logistics centers?
Look, Westfield, this article, I think it was Westfield, Brookfield.
Westfield's a mall owner. Brookfield's a big office.
Yeah, I know Brookfield has
malls.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, there was an announcement. There were 53 redevelopment projects announced by one of these guys. 3 penciled. Okay. The reality is it's very, very, very difficult to demall a mall. Okay. Hybrid, fine. And the word mall should be everything we look at is hybrid. It's hybrid open air, hybrid enclosed. Yeah. Okay. And they're almost thought differently. It's just very, very challenging asset. Ask the question again.
So have you seen anybody be successful in converting a mall into these logistics centers?
Logistics, again, I'm not.
What I mean purely just shipping like last.
Because we've read about that.
I've read about it.
Yeah,
but they're happening in the dense metros.
That makes sense.
Okay, in the dense metros where there's no land. In hometown America, there's always land, so it's not. It's not the architecture. Well, you're seeing malls being demolished, or you're seeing them now where you want a major tenant or a major user wants to take a third of the land. So you've got to demall a third
effectively,
and you have to have new entrances. You have to face people out this way.
It's a lot of CapEx dollars. Yeah. It's a lot of CapEx dollars.
Well, yeah, but that's only part of it. The toughest part is how do you underwrite it? Okay, and how do you underwrite a consent? Consent might take a year. It might take 2 years.
Listen, guys, this isn't really that complicated. It's called pickleball. You just put in a few pickleball courts. It'll save your ass.
You beat me. This is how I know Jack and I spent too much time together.
You guys are thinking wrong. Pickleball is not the solution.
Well, you're clearly not a pickleball player.
Hold on. We got to talk. I'm going to go there in a second.
He's going to go there because we're going to force this answer out of him. So I was going to do a rapid fire of throwing out ideas at Andy for malls and see what he thinks is a good one. All right. So you beat me with pickleball. You're going to say paddle, probably.
You mean P-A-D-L?
Yeah, padel? Is it paddle?
No, it's paddle. And my son moved to Madrid 6 weeks ago to become one of the top paddle players in the country.
Is he actually really one of the top, or if he was here, he'd be like, Dad, come on, I'm not.
Well, he played D1 at Rice Tennis.
Okay, so he's good. He's a real
his
deal.
goal is to be top 100 in the United States.
Okay.
Awesome game. So
Okay.
I was going to say, so I think it's Padel.
It's paddle. No,
Paddle?
in Spain they pronounce it paddle.
Padel.
No,
Oh,
the
paddle.
accent on the first
That's so
day.
weird.
Paddle.
That's funny because everybody here says Padel, and I'm like, what the hell is Padel? Is that a different game?
Spain is where the center
All right,
is.
let's
keep
go
it
to
moving,
paddle.
keep it moving.
So
Yes.
first thing for malls, paddle courts.
Okay, now PADDLE different than PADEL. Okay, so the problem is you guys have big city mentality. In hometown America, the numbers generally don't work.
Bocce ball.
No, they don't
What do
work.
they want?
You have to have an operator. The operator's got
Handball.
to put they got to put capital in to convert.
Okay,
There's
okay,
some
fine,
examples.
okay.
There are some examples, and I've seen them. You got to have the operator behind.
Okay.
it.
Okay.
So Padel, paddle,
Yeah,
both
push
of them
aside.
Got it.
out. Pickleball, out.
Yes.
Petting zoo.
No.
Why?
Why?
Who doesn't like animals?
It doesn't pay the bills. Now,
Yeah, but
it
it
can
brings
drive
people.
traffic. Look, if you're
Yeah.
looking for ways to lose money, I'm an expert on that. Okay, I'm an expert on that. No. If you're looking for ways to create fun, that's fine.
I have
It's okay.
ethical concerns
It's
about
okay.
that too.
It's
So
okay.
let's keep it moving.
Paintball.
I was going to say that.
Okay, look, family entertainment in all of its different forms, yes. There's 1,000 variations. That's one. There's go-karts, there's jumping, there's
Yeah.
all these.
I would love to do go-karts in a completely demolished mall. Seems like a great
I would love to
idea.
do
Okay.
go-karts combined with paintball. Brilliant
What do
idea.
they call those? The break
look,
rooms
look.
where you can go all angry and smash a car?
So look, let me tell you the game. And there's guys out there that do this.
Yeah.
That is, if you want me to solve your vacant space in hometown, you are going to give me all the capital I need to open this up. So I don't need any capital.
Yeah, no risk. Yeah.
No risk, and I'll pay you
I get that.
10% of sales.
All right, I'm not done. What about
Wait, and there are people who do that.
10% of sales?
10% of sales. So if they'll do
luck.
$3 million, you'll make $300,000. So you're going to give them. Say you have to give them $3 million.
Yeah.
Okay, that is dilutive, but it's fun.
All right, we're not done yet. Escape
Go.
rooms.
It's the same thing. They're fine.
Have you done an escape room?
No.
Well,
Well,
there
actually,
go.
we have.
Changing from family motif. Farms. Indoor farms.
No.
Farm to table is really popular.
No.
People like
you,
organic.
you are not putting your hometown
there
hat
are
on.
food deserts.
This is great for Soho, for
right.
New York. Okay, it's great for Soho.
one more thing, beekeeping. Have you ever discussed that? We had Mark DeLuca from KBS on there.
Come
a
on,
lot of
you're
office buildings.
you're
They have
solving
beekeepers now.
you're solving a real humanitarian
The
crisis.
answer is no. Okay. Now, look.
All right.
Look.
Ecological crisis.
But look, you could say, Andy, you're not rock stepping. Okay,
You're not
which is
rock
our metaphor.
This is great because I
You're
wanted to
not,
give you a
okay,
chance to
so-
get
all
into
right,
the rock
Close,
step.
close us out with the RockStep.
Okay, guys,
Give us-
I got to do this. I want people.
Yeah.
So, RockStep is not a word in the dictionary. It is a dance move. Big band, Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Peggy Lee Rose, blah 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 blah. That when you swing dance, you rock step on count 7 and 8. I did it earlier. I'm not going to do it again.
Why not?
That's-
Well, I was
that's a
going to
little
ask if
back
you and
and forth.
Alex could show us, but
No,
well, after
Nobody
the
wants to
show.
see me dance.
Okay. Anyway, I did the rock step earlier. 1 2 3 1 2 3 rock ball
I didn't
pivot
get to see
change.
it.
Okay. So we use it as a metaphor, guys. We got to pivot. We got to be.
Yep.
We got to be nimble. So we have an opportunity, guys. We got a rock step. So we use it as a verb.
Mm-hmm.
As a verb. Got problems here. Got a rock step. Okay. So you guys were challenging me. I was saying no. I wasn't
You
creative.
rock-stepped.
I wasn't rock stepped. Okay. So we also use it as a noun. So we have 25 rules of behavior. You guys get these.
Hey,
We
You
have rock
wrote down
steps.
this is like a
Thank
mini
you.
No,
Bible.
wait. This is our owner's
is great.
manual. This is our owner's manual. Okay.
some people carry around the Bible. Some
this
carry
is
around
this
the
is- so I
Constitution.
wrote, wait. This
We
is
carry
not
around the
rock
values.
steps.
Well, you gotta listen here, guys. You gotta let me do
I'm
my-
excited.
Okay, I am excited. So I wrote rules of behavior, 25 rules of behavior. We call them rock steps. You should know that. And we're on rock step 24, which is keep family first. We rotate 25 weeks. We've been doing it for 9 years. The whole company gets on a phone call, 10 in the morning, Mondays. What does it mean to keep family first? Take care of your health, take care of your family, then you can take care of RockStep. And these are the rules. If you guys come to an interview at our company, what are your favorite 3 and why? What are your most challenging 3 and why? And that is the first part of the interview. You better be good at leasing property management to stay at RockStep. You better be good at following the rock steps.
Yeah.
It's a language we use. We are required to live by these rules. How do you deal with conflict? How do you build trust, okay, at our company? We're required to live by these with our communities, with our tenants, with our lenders. everything. And so people can call us on it. And so we, what are your favorite 3? And Ryan, what are your most challenging 3?
Well, don't be a jerk is all the way back in 22. I would have put that in the top 5 somewhere.
When we talk about it,
kicking out.
No,
these are important too.
The key about don't being a jerk is you don't want to allow brilliant jerks.
Oh, those are the worst.
A brilliant jerk, and I've done it. I made the mistake.
They think they know.
Jack one?
No, a brilliant jerk is a person who you think can be transformative to the company, and you let your guard down, and you don't follow the rock steps. And somebody who can make. I mean, this happens everywhere.
Sure.
There's the brilliant salesperson, the brilliant whatever, who's a jerk.
Right.
And I let that happen to our company. And I have committed that we will never have another brilliant jerk.
Yeah, we've all had those experiences.
Yes. So, but it's a language my kids use, and my wife, and everyone at our company uses that language. It is our owner's manual, dead serious, to the mat, emotional, cry with tears stuff.
Yeah,
I like it.
Okay?
No, it's really cool.
And so we have people from Brookfield and Blackstone and CBL who want to be in a company that makes hometowns better and that lives by the rock steps.
No, it's a beautiful thing.
Awesome.
And I'll tell you, Andy, I hope, if anything, we followed Rule 25 today, which is keep things fun.
So let's talk about that.
Kept things fun.
My wife, this is one of my most challenging. My wife says, Andy, you take the fun out of fun. Okay. So
I find that hard to believe.
Come on. No. I'm trying to get better, but I'm
earlier.
serious. On the outside, on the inside, I'm very, very happy, guys. I just want you to know that. My wife, she is bubbly, laughy, happy. On the inside, nervous wreck. Women can be
Jack,
wrecked.
by the way.
Okay,
It's totally me. They'd be friends.
Nervous wreck. And so we balance each other out. So, I'm trying to become more fun. We have a new YouTube channel called the Shopping Center Channel.
Great. Now, more competition
we have
for
new,
no cap.
We have new. No, that's okay. We have Instagram.
Are you on TikTok?
The Shopping Center guy. Not yet.
I don't go there.
Yeah. Okay. We're not there yet.
Saving that challenge.
Anyway, so.
Well, no, we really appreciate you coming on. This was so much fun. It really was,
Keep things fun.
Keep things fun,
things
number
fun.
25. It's the last rule,
Yes.
but an important one nonetheless.
Yeah.
So, thanks so much.
Hey,
Andy,
it's
great
a
to meet
pleasure,
you.
guys. Thank you so much.